Good evening and welcome to The Real Study with your hosts, MrSniDBitS,
I don't have a problem with him, but I don't think he's that and a bag of chips.
BlackGirlMarvel,
I cried laughing. That was hilarious.
Tylermakesfilms.
That was like our favorite movie for some reason. I mean, it was really good. I enjoyed that movie.
Allthemoviethings.
I think the thing why I enjoyed it more too was the fact that we were going to talk about it from this perspective.
The pre-review with BlindBiggie.
Hey, this is BlindBiggie. Welcome to the pre-review.
And me, the Real Study movie voice guy.
I'm the Real Study movie voice guy.
Let's go to the poster wall.
Good evening and welcome to The Real Study. My name is MrSniDBitS, and with me as always is BlackGirlMarvel. And tonight we've also got our other co-host, Tylermakesfilms. Know all the movie things tonight, but sitting in his place, we've got our special guest, Josh Levesque, who is an horror movie extraordinaire on TikTok. If you do not follow him or my co-host, please do that right away. And yes, it is pretty cool that you're on Twitter hearing us talk. That's pretty cool. We are broadcasting live to both Twitter and YouTube tonight. This is new for us, so please check us out on either platform and all other platforms for that matter. But we're going to be discussing this evening, we're going to be discussing Tales from the Hood, Candyman, the 1992 film, as well as Jordan Peele's Nope. Look forward to next week. We will have another special guest, Just Enough, another awesome horror TikToker talking about Stoker. I think we're also going to be doing Hellraiser, the new Hellraiser, as well as Beast. So it's going to be another interesting week. That said, we're going to move over to the main screen here and say hello. How's everybody doing?
Peachy.
Very good.
Very good. Thanks for coming back, Josh. We loved having you last time, so appreciate you coming back to talk horror movies with us.
Well, love's a strong word, but we did enjoy you. No, I'm just playing.
Well,
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course, we do enjoy it. So, so what I want to do is we actually have a couple of segments tonight. One of them is actually going to be from our movie voice guy, Mickey, known as Cell Phone Wallet and Keys. And because he's doing a bunch of trivia that might relate to these films, I figured we'd start off with that tonight. So, in fact, we'll be right back.
What's good, Real Study community and fellow cinephiles? This week, the crew is taking on a group of 3 iconic horror movies. A horror anthology with style, a classic slasher with a fresh take, and a big budget spectacle like no other. So let's just cut to the chase and kick to the fun part with those all-important words. Did you know? Did you know Tales from the Hood is the first horror film Spike Lee ever produced? And the only other horror movie on his resume is Tales from the Hood 2. Did you know this film has the same cinematographer as one of our other films we're reviewing, Candyman? The film may be inspired by Tales from the Crypt, which also happens to star an episode with Clarence Williams III, but the film's anthology style was really chosen so that it could highlight several different racial and social issues simultaneously in one film. I'm sure you know the film stars popular comedian David Alan Grier. But did you know that was the point of the role? They wanted audiences to be shocked at someone they're used to laughing at, and in this case, you know. Did you know that some of the dolls in the KKK come-uppance sequence were reused in Team America World Police, which was also done by the Chiodo brothers? Did you know the bees in Candyman were handled by Norman Gary, a famous Hollywood bee wrangler known for films such as My Girl and Fried Green Tomatoes? The film used more than 200,000 honeybees throughout, and most of the crew had to wear special suits to protect themselves from getting stung. Now, these bees were bred specifically for the film. They weren't more than 12 hours old, so they looked mature, but they didn't have that powerful and potent sting that a mature bee would. But did you know Tony Todd and his representatives negotiated a $1,000 bonus for each bee sting? And there were 23 in total. Speaking of which, did you know it took up to half an hour to get all of those bees into Tony Todd's mouth? Did you know actress Virginia Madsen was actually hypnotized on set in scenes where she's supposed to be under the Candyman spell? Madsen became more and more uncomfortable with this type of method on set and eventually asked for them to stop. Did you know director Bernard Rose had Virginia Madsen and Tony Todd take ballroom dancing classes to form more of a romantic connection? Did you know that according to film producer Alan Pohl, if Virginia Madsen had not been available, the role would have went to Sandra Bullock? Did you know the film is based on a short story called The Forbidden, written by Clive Barker, who also helped pen the script for Candyman? Barker's original story takes place in a British projects with a yellow-skinned man with a red beard and a hook for a hand. Did you know the scene where Candyman's hook burst through the medicine cabinet was set up without Virginia Madsen's knowledge? Her terror and shock was 100% authentic. Did you know Keke Palmer's energetic monologue at the beginning of Nope had 14 different takes? Jordan Peele saying each one wildly different than the next. Did you know Jordan Peele wrote this script at a time when we were all a little bit worried about the future of cinema? Peele said the first thing he wanted to do was create a very large spectacle, something to bring audiences out to the theater. Did you know this is the first horror film to be shot on IMAX, and that this is Jordan Peele's first feature to be shot on film? Did you know the characters of Emerald and OJ respectively wear the colors green and orange several times throughout the movie? Did you know most of the night sequences, specifically those in Haywood's Field, were shot during the day? These scenes were shot with a normal 70mm Panavision film camera and a digital ARRI Alexa 65 camera, modified with an IR filter removed from the sensor to make it sensitive to the infrared light. These were put in a 3D camera rig so that they were set to take the same image at once. The two images were then composited together to give the night scenes their unique look. Did you know that when Ricky states that in 1 hour you will leave here having witnessed a spectacle, it is exactly 1 hour until the film's credits roll? Did you know that Jordan Peele's creature design was heavily influenced by the angels in Neon Genesis Evangelion? Did you know midway through the movie, OJ and Emerald dine at Copperpot's Cove, the same restaurant seen in the movie Us? The restaurant's name is a reference to Chester Copperpot, the treasure hunter whose map Mike and the gang uses to find One-Eye Willie's treasure in the Goonies. Those are our 3 films tonight. I want to thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you learned something new, and if you didn't, I hope I at least entertained you in some way. So if it's cool with you, I'm going to kick it back to the Real Study crew, and hey, now you know.
And thank you, Mickey, for that. Did you know? You can also catch Mickey's Did You Know on TikTok, where you can follow him to get a whole bunch of different Did You Knows for a bunch of variety of films. But he does the kind of extended edition for us on the films that we're doing here each week, which is awesome. So we're going to get right into it. We're watching, like I said, Tales from the Hood is going to be the first film that we're talking about, which is a Spike Lee production. And it is an anthology film that came out in 1995. And it is kind of inspired, as Mickey stated, similar to Tales from the Crypt. And it's 5 stories if you want to get really technical. But the fourth one kind of ties to the fifth story in a way. So why don't we just start with Josh? What did you think of Tales from the Hood? Was this your first viewing? Let us kind of get your take.
I think it was my first viewing. I remember parts of it from when I was a kid. But I watched it in its entirety yesterday, and I was like, I don't think I ever actually sat through this whole movie. And I've always wanted to. I watched Horror Noir, the documentary on Shudder a while back, and they talked about this one a lot. And I was like, oh, I definitely need to revisit that one. So I'm really glad I did. I really enjoyed it. I think it was crazy timely, considering it's from 1995. Like how much all of these stories are still 100% relevant today. Definitely handled with the right nuance from Rusty Cundiff. I think the crew and everyone involved did a great job executing it well, where it's like you've got this very relevant like metaphor, or not even metaphor, just like an outright statement on what's happening in the world today, but you can also twist it into a very scary, good like horror show. I'm just a sucker for anthologies, because even if there's a bad story, then just wait 10 minutes and you're going to get another one. And usually they're still pretty fun, especially at how they're all interconnected. But yeah, I thought Clarence Williams as Mr. Sims was a perfect narrator, like carrying us through the whole thing. I love his character. The practical effects in the first piece with the undead makeup effect on the guy, I'm not facing his name now, and then when the cop like melts into the wall, that stuff blew me away. I was like, as soon as that first piece ended, I was like, oh, I love this movie. I've only seen 20 minutes of it, but I'm sold. But yeah, I really loved it. It's like I said, unfortunately timeless right now, and still very well written. But I thought it was a perfect blend of like a statement on what it was trying to say, while also being just like a fun horror picture. Yeah, I adored it, and I'm mad that it took me so long to watch it again, or for the first time, if I remember.
I'm glad we could at least get you watching it all the way through, which is great. Lala, what's your take on Tales from the Hood? How many times have you seen it, and was this, when did you see it first, maybe, and then what was your impression this time around?
I'm pretty sure I saw it in 1995. I was about like 9 or 10 when I saw it, and I was just like zoned in. Mainly because it was like Black people on screen. And a whole bunch of them, and I've never really seen that before. And then on top of that too, it talked about things that happened like slightly in my neighborhood and sometimes adjacent of my neighborhood, but it talked about things that I could actually relate to. But then it put like an aspect on it that people already felt, especially people of who are Black or African American, whatever you want to call yourselves. So it's like, it was, after a child, it was terrifying. I used to have I used to have nightmares about the little puppets when I was younger. Probably because I probably shouldn't have been watching this movie when it came out. But I did. And so like after a while, it was just like something that like played, like, because they actually used to play this on TV. Don't remember the network. Part of me wants to say VH1, but who knows? But they used to play this a lot, especially like during around this time or whatever, like, like a spooky time, it would play on TV, BET maybe. And I love this. Like, I love this. Like, my favorite is the Poppet thing, like the Poppet episode, like I think it's called like KK Uppance or something like that. And because I don't know, to me, that one sticks out to me because it's about how to figure out my words. It's pretty much about like not forgetting about like the ground you kind of stand on, right? And it's literally kind of like a gentrifying episode in the sense where they're like trying to take this land that so much bad things have happened on, and then try to reinvent it to project this like this white man into power. And then it's like just another visual of like white people stepping on the legacy of Black people to get ahead. And like, it's super duper relevant in 2022, as sad as that is, but it's one that just actually just stuck out to me the most, especially with like the politics and everything, because politics, for the most part, the people change, but the politics don't. And so it's very similar. But like, this was like, I don't know, this was like a film that like I didn't even know like a majority of my family watched it, so I would like quote stuff from it and they'll pick up like after me, and I'm like, yo, you saw it too? Like, it was like just a thing in my family. So like, I've seen this like way too many times to boot, to the point where I didn't even have to watch it because I've seen it. I can read about it. I can read it on Wikipedia and be like, yep, I remember seeing this and when that happened and this and that. So yeah.
All right. Tyler, was this your first time or have you seen it before?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I'm convinced me and Josh might be kind of literally the same person, because that's exactly my experience with this movie, everything he said. I did enjoy I like how it's structured, like the progression of the stories. Like, you got kind of like this, relatively speaking, like goofy, like kind of zombie, like sword, and then you got one that's a little bit more about like domestic violence and like it's like a children's story almost. Then you got like the puppets, and then when you get to like that final story, I was like, it's good that they like progressed up until that, because when you hit that last story with all the imagery, which I'm assuming was like real images, was like a lot to take. But I just like those stories where they're like, yeah, the scary stuff isn't, zombies and ghosts and stuff. The scary stuff is racist.
No, like literally. Yeah.
Yeah, when I suggested this movie, I had forgotten about the final segment. I mostly remembered the monster segment and then the puppet segment. And it was interesting because when I was watching it, I was like, oh, wow, I suggested this and didn't think about a triggering factor, and I should have. So if I didn't warn you guys, I apologize up front, but at the same time, it is very relevant and very important. And yes, it's a Spike Lee production, so those images were all very real.
Yeah.
Not the cuts when they were showing, the different gang members shooting each other. That was still stylized, but all the black and white photos were 100% real. And again, like you said, that's showing the horror that is our past and our present, even for that matter. So this movie is exceptionally relevant, as you've all said, and yeah, it's horror but telling truth. Although horror does that. That's kind of the thing about horror. This is a little more on the nose than most horror. Most horror does, there's allegory or there's metaphor. This one's just like, no, this is the horror, and it just states it outright. So I'm with you guys. This was like my third viewing, but most of them were back in the 90s when I saw it. So
this was the director Rusty. He also co-wrote. He worked on Chappelle's Show. So the fact that this is like funny but also like informative makes a lot of sense, because that's essentially what kind of like Chappelle's Show was. It was like funny, but it still shed light on some like other things that people like really didn't pay attention to or didn't know because they weren't in a certain like community or whatever. So I think that was like quite interesting that like through his career, like he's kind of kept that type of way of writing or is attracted to projects like that. So I thought that was pretty cool.
He was also the director was also the teacher, I think, in the second short, right? I just saw that. I was like, that's so cool. Like,
wait, I didn't even catch that he's the teacher in that segment. That's
the monster sketch.
That's cool. I actually like that segment quite a bit. And David Alan Grier showing up in that as an evil character
he was solid in that, man. He was so good.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He was, and it's weird because he's never done anything quite like it. He's always been a comedian. In Living Color was his bag for the longest time, and I would have never expected that from him. But I think what I heard was, well,
that shows you how talented he is.
Agreed. And Mickey was mentioning how that is kind of the whole point. It was the director was like let's pick somebody they would never expect to do this, which I think is great. To your point about the third segment with the puppets, apparently the main white actor that they had playing the potential senator, they took his name from two real neo-Nazi and KKK members. So Duke, as in the, I don't need to say his real name, but you get the name. And then Metger is the name of the other person. And again, I'm not trying to promote them, but I like that they named him after a real couple of people, and then unalived him as quickly as they possibly could to send a message. And I think that's great. That's one of my favorite segments of the of the four as well. We talked about the special effects a little bit. Josh, you did. Anything specific stand out as maybe dated with this film at all for you guys? Silence. Okay. No.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the silly transitions or like the weird stuff, but you can always forgive it when you're like, at the time, this was mind blowing. Like I rewatched the first Hellraiser all the time, and the little lightning bolts coming out of the cube when she's unlocking it, I was like, that would be cheesy if we saw that in a movie in 2022. But I'm like, but for the time being, it was fine. So yeah, some of the transitions or like when the dolls are disappearing from the painting or whatever like that looks a little dated, but I think it still works for the overall story. Like it doesn't take me out of it or anything. And the other special effects, like I said, the makeup effects on the zombie in the first story, and when the cop gets like melted into the mural, are so cool even today that I'm like, that right there sealed it for me. Like that was amazing.
Even if they're like a little harsh, a little crude at this time, you know what I mean? It's still like, I don't know, it still does something to you when you see it. It still like works in a sense, and like you just have to have a brain that you're like, okay, I'm in 2022, but I'm gonna take my brain back to like 1995. It's fine. just take my brain back there.
It rattles me that this movie's. Like, go ahead, Tyler. Go ahead.
No.
It works.
Yeah, I was just saying, like it's just because it's like it's campy and it like for me it's like if I saw that movie now, or if I saw the movie then, I probably might not have enjoyed it the same way I do now, because like I appreciate the effects the way that they were. Specifically, that explosion in the first short when the guy standing in the car and then like the car like explodes. That was wild.
Inexplicably, it just happens.
Did not expect.
He shot at the roof even, and it exploded. Like I don't even know how that happened. That's worse than the effects from last week with Daybreakers, where the Humvee blew up inexplicably.
Or like even David Alan Grier's transformation. You're like, oh, okay.
Right.
But
he was a pile of Grier on the floor,
but I
right?
get it, and I'm gonna let it ride because it's still a little terrifying, and my stomach hurts when I watch it. So it's just, it's like you kind of give a pass during the time. If they would have made this now, I'd be like, come on now, y'all. Where the budget at? Where the 2022 budget at?
Right. No, I'm with you there. I think it's interesting because the cops in the first scene, this is only 3 years after the Rodney King trial. And so those cops, those actors playing those cops were taking somewhat of a risk in their career by playing people that could have been typecast as these racist cops. So you got to kind of give them some love for taking on roles that very well could have damaged their careers, or for all we know did damage their careers, because people do have trouble separating film from reality. I don't quite know why still, but they do. And it's nice to see people that are willing to put themselves out there to say these messages, because that first one is still a vast reality for so many people. I mean, we still talk about police shootings on a regular basis, and it's weird. This is a very heavy movie, even though it's kind of cheesy and over the top. The subject matter is wildly heavy, so it's hard to talk about the cheesy parts because they're overshadowed in a lot of ways by these heavy moments. I don't know. I think the least heavy one would have been the domestic violence one, the monster one. The other three were very in your face.
I'm not gonna get into it, but that one actually got me specifically because I personal experience, but just that story was not fun at all the entire time I was watching it. You already knew the whole, oh yeah, the kid was like, I have this monster or whatever. I'm like, no, that's your dad probably. I'm gonna say parody.
Where did he get the superpower? Because the stepdad wasn't the monster. He's a monster because he's a monster, right? We know that domestic violence, abusers are monsters in that way. But where did the kid get this voodoo style, where he draws something and all of a sudden he can do that to people?
I think it was more of a representation of his of standing up for himself in a sense. So I think they just manifested as something that maybe a kid could understand, if drawing something and then being because my thing is, maybe that was his power all along. Maybe the dad was abusive, but then his fear elevated him into essentially becoming this monster that he saw in his mind. So when he drew the monster, he became the monster, and when he ripped the picture up, he was able to defeat that part. That's how I kind of took it. Because if we go more into it, I think it'll be you'll get into but in the MCU they do I think our brains will go that way,
right,
type of thing. I just think it had I think it was just maybe an allegory, his strength, his resolve eventually.
Not to be corny, but love is stronger than fear.
Oh,
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Can I just say my favorite thing about Tyler is when he says stuff that he knows is kind of corny. He always says something like blah 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 blah. He just laughs.
He has
about
a little
it.
laugh, right? I noticed it in all your TikToks too. I love it.
It's my favorite. Listen, it's my favorite thing to watch and do, especially when he's bragging on people on his TikTok who's saying stupid stuff, and he's like, "Oh, okay, I guess we'll just say forget all women," and he'll laugh, and it's just super funny, and I love it. So,
I'm with you. I agree with you. So Clarence Williams III, we're talking about a seasoned actor, and rest in peace at this point. So he's obviously missed. But him playing crazy, it's just perfect. He can always play crazy so well. And I even made a video a long time ago about how I wished he could have played the Joker, because I think he would have done such a fantastic job as the Joker.
I agree.
And see him play Satan, spoilers if you haven't seen Tales from the Hood, but he essentially plays Satan, which is awesome. And even that transformation.
I feel like he plays Satan in a way that the Bible kind of describes, because he plays Satan in a way that you don't know he's Satan.
Right.
He just don't show up with cloven hooves and a pitchfork, and it's just I'm Satan. He literally the thing about this film that I really love is that it's just very seamless. You get the beginning, stuff happens, and then you get all these movies, you get this stuff, and then you get it towards the end, and he's pretty much you learn anything, and they're like, man, if you don't get us up out of here, he's like, one more thing, and it's that's literally what because he was leading them deeper and deeper into the funeral home, which is literally leading them deeper and deeper into hell, and that's kind of a subtle way that the devil does it. He kind of he doesn't force you, he just entices you enough to lead you to your own doom, and that's literally what he did to these dudes. And I dug that. I gotta put him as one of my favorite Lucifers. Oh my god. Okay, continue.
No, you're good. Good point. I love that they thought that they were just going to get some drugs and do their thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, when they died, their memories were wiped, and just he took them right back to the moment before they died and just had them doing their thing. And that's tricky. It's a pretty effed up thing to do. So, what was your favorite segment, Josh, of the 4/5 segments?
4-ish, yeah.
I would say I still really liked the first one with the police, just because of the effect and the way it just got me into the film immediately. Like that was a hell of a way to kick it off and let you know, like, this is what this movie's going to be about. It's going to be scary, it's going to be funny, but it's also going to talk about some real shit. So strap in. And I was like, all right. But I think the dolls one with Corbin Burnson as the politician on the plantation is probably my favorite segment, just because as it was like unfolding, that wasn't one that was like, I don't know. It was really fun to kind of like see how everything kind of evolved. You kind of had an idea of what was going to happen, but then as the dolls started popping up, I was like, oh yeah, no, this is so creepy as hell. And Corbin Burnson, I don't know why he plays like an evil white dude so much. I've heard he's like one of the nicest guys in the world. He's got the world's largest snow globe collection. He's like a very, very gentle man, but he plays just complete scum very, very well. He was very, very well cast in that one.
Some people, it's their wheelhouse, and he was definitely copied by those puppets at the end. Like they copied him, copied from Jurassic Park. Sorry, yeah. They just little bites until he was nothing again. How about you, Tyler? What was your favorite segment?
The whole thing. I like the reveal at the end because I was so distracted by the stories. Like usually I'm like, I'm going to figure out the ending and stuff, but I was so distracted by what was happening because it was so good that like by the end I was like, I was not even thinking that was going to happen. Like that makes a lot of sense. Also, I just wanted to mention just the makeup on the mortician specifically. He's like sweating throughout the entire movie, and I was like, why is this guy sweating? And then the reveal happens. I'm like, he's Satan. It's always hot. It's hot down here. Like
I also think that Clarence Williams III is sweating in a lot of his later roles, even in like Half Baked. You can watch him; he's sweating in that. I think it just lends to his craziness. So it might have been a choice. But how about you, Lala?
I'm gonna be like Tyler, like the whole thing. No, but it kind of is the whole thing. Because I will say, when I first watched it, that reveal at the end, I didn't catch that. Because if you do go back and watch it, you can see like by the second story, you can see that he kind of starts dripping sweat, and then like the further they get down into hell, it's like he's getting more and more riled up too. And this like Clarence Sims is just amazing because his acting is very like magnetic. It's just like you can feel everything he says and how he moves and everything. I like it all. I like them all because I could pick out points in all of them that I like. The Poppin' one is always like, I guess, like top tier for me because it's something that's like, it's stuck in my mind as a kid. That might have been like the only thing that I remembered as a kid. And then when I went back and watched it, I was like, oh, this whole thing is really nice. As I got like a little older, like maybe like 12 or 13 or something, I was like, oh, this whole thing is nice. But the Poppin' one like really stood out to me because I think it was like, I felt like the other ones was like campy, and like thinking about it now, the Poppet one is very much like you can put that in a movie now. Like it's quite terrifying. Like to hear the pitter patter of feet, but you don't see anything. Like that's like to this day, if I hear like little feet, I'm out the game. Like you gotta just I'm leaving wherever I'm going the opposite direction of that sound. Like because that's like a terrifying like sound. But I do like the message of like I guess like the second to last one, if you want, like, I like the message of like, because it was pretty much about like black on black crime, essentially. Like that's what that whole one was about. And it was about taking responsibility and trying to be like a better person and going a different way. And when you refuse to go that way, you bring yourself right back to that sign of violence, which is why she was like, you won't get another chance. You gonna take responsibility. And he didn't. He died. Like, because they essentially saved him to see if he can be remorseful, and he wasn't. And so like to me, that was a nice metaphor of like what's kind of still happening to this day. And then you can flip it and put white people in that too, like who kill without remorse, who don't care about, you know, how they lift a gun or whatever they do. You know what I mean? So like, the puppet one is the one, but then like that one's a very close second.
For sure. No, I agree. I think the puppet one for me is the pinnacle, but I do love watching Clarence Williams transform into the devil, and then he actually has the little like tongue coming through his gap in his teeth, which he like obviously was like, go for it, you know, make sure that goes through the gap in my teeth. Why don't we go ahead and rate the film, and because we said we have a lot more to do tonight, and then we will move on to Candyman, which
we're making great time, by the way. I just want to say that, mind you, it's a great time.
No, so quick rating. Obviously, Lala did watch this when she was 12, so we'll get a rating from her on that. Go ahead, Lala. Why don't you start us off? What's your rating?
Me now, I'll give this a 9. I don't see anything wrong with this. I think it's great. Even if like makeup or, you know, practical effect wise, it doesn't like stand up for the most part. And a lot of this is like pretty much all of it is like practical effects. Like I ain't see no CGI. I don't think they had a CGI budget. Like, I mean, they kind of did, but it was kind of low. But I give this a 9. I think it's solid. As a 12-year-old, obsessed. I probably would have gave this like a 10 or something like that, because it was just something I watched all the time, and it's just it's literally like a part of my childhood. Like if you had a backpack, like, and it was, your backpack was titled like childhood, that's in my backpack, my childhood backpack. So yeah.
All right.
9 and 10.
9 and 10. So quite high ratings. Tyler.
I'm probably gonna give it 9 as well. I really enjoyed it. Same thing, like a lot of the practical effects for me, like I still give it a pass today. 12-year-old me, I would say that Tales from the Crypt guy always like freaked me out, so I probably would have just like assumed it was like in the same realm and avoided it. So,
which you would have been right. So you'd have been like, nope.
By the way, that Tales from the Crypt guy is the same face and head as Chucky the doll, so be aware of that. If you don't like him, you might not like Chucky. So
I used to love Tales from the Crypt though. Man. Oh.
How about you, Josh?
Yeah, I'd say probably like 8.5 or 9 as well after first viewing. If 12-year-old me had seen it, I loved Tales from the Crypt, so I probably would have given it like a 10 as a kid and just been like, oh, this is totally my shit. Yeah, the practical effects were great. Story kept me engaged. It's always nice when I revisit something from that long ago, or see something for the first time that's that old and it still lives up to the hype. And this one, this had me right off the bat.
So I did see this when I was a teenager. Saw this, I think I was 18 when this came out, and I think I rated it lower then, but I think I have much more appreciation for the film and all the different things being said in the film. So I'm going to rate it much higher, but I think I'm definitely going to give this an 8. I think that this movie is also a good candidate for a remake. They should go back and tell these same 4 stories again, but with a modern twist, maybe getting Spike Lee to come back and produce again, maybe even direct one of the segments. It'd be nice to see them branch out and have a couple different directors doing the different segments. But all right. So that was Tales from the Hood. We are going to move on to Candyman, and then we will get into Nope in the second hour. Candyman is, of course, a 1992 horror thriller starring Tony Todd and Virginia Madsen. And this is a movie for me.
She's so pretty in this film.
She really is. She looks like almost like a 1920s or 30s movie star, right? They did a good job with that. This is a movie that I have avoided since 1997 for personal reasons, and I'm going to go into it a little bit because I picked this movie because I've been meaning to rewatch it, but this movie messed me up so bad when I was young that it gave me nightmares. And I didn't understand why until watching it last night. And I even had anxiety for the first half of the movie, and my wife couldn't even leave the room. Like, it was that bad. And people are, they can giggle at me, whatever. It's not about Candyman himself or Tony Todd necessarily. It's not about Virginia Madsen's character at the end even. For me, it's the mirror thing, and especially the bathroom that sits outside of the projects where, they got shit written all over the wall and all of that stuff. That reminded me of what had happened to me when I was a kid, where these kids locked me in a bathroom and did Bloody Mary. And it really fucked me up, to the point where when I did see this in 97, it triggered it again. And I was like, I'm never watching Candyman again. I won't do it. I refuse to do it. But 25 years later, I did it, and I'm glad I did, because now I think the anxiety is related to that and I can deal with it. but it's still an eerie ass film. Like, this movie is still very creepy and some good jump scares, good, interesting story. I do like the twists and turns and the idea that you're just insane and people just all think you're insane, even though you're not. I do like those kinds of monster movies. So that was my take. I kind of took advantage because it does have this personal impact for me. But why don't we go to Tyler? What was your take on the 92 Candyman? Had you seen it before?
I saw it a long time ago. This will be the second time I bring up Spike TV because I'm pretty sure it was on Spike TV or
you need an endorsement at this point.
We will take endorsements from Spike TV. Yes, we will.
Yeah, like I would say that's why like it's scary for me because this movie was like I watched Tales from the Hood first, then I watched this Candyman like right after, so it was like it's very like atmospheric compared to the other ones. I did see a lot of because I saw the newer one too. There's a lot of like similarities between the two, so it's interesting going back to see the original Candyman because I don't think I've ever seen it in its entirety because it scared me so bad. But yeah, I liked a lot of. There's this thing that it would do with the camera movements where like it'll do really slow pans and then the camera gonna be like, is there something? I don't know, maybe not. Like, and then sometimes nothing will happen. It's like I don't like this. It's uncomfortable the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah, this was pretty scary. I did not like it.
Josh. Josh, can you hear me? Oh, we lost him. Lala, go ahead.
Disappeared. So wait. You're muted, bro.
Am I back?
You're back.
Yeah, you're back. Go, Josh. Tell us how you feel about Candyman.
Internet in this new apartment trying to ruin my podcast appearances.
That's okay. We roll with it, so go ahead.
And I've seen Candyman probably a few dozen times. This is an annual rewatch for me because it's I remember seeing it as a kid, and every year around spooky season there's like a handful of movies that I'm always just like throwing back on, and this is one of my favorites. I love that it's like when I was a kid, I just assumed it was lumped in with like Freddy and Jason and like oh, it's just a slasher. And then rewatching it when I was younger and like really appreciating it for the first time, I think as a teenager, I was like, oh, this is a completely different story. And like you were saying, the idea of you being the only one who can see this entity that is very real and about to slice you up, like is terrifying to me. Like trying to explain to people what I'm like something that's this haunting that's happening to me. But again, like Tales from the Hood, while being scary and beautiful and having this great like fiction moment, it does still make a lot of statements and is still very relevant today with the history behind it. Tony Todd, obviously iconic, and Virginia Madsen is great in it. Yeah, this one, yeah, still probably like top 10 for me as far as like horror movies in my lifetime. I watch this one pretty regularly and I still love it. I still think the story's fantastic. The one thing I know my girlfriend really can't handle is the dog scene. That part, I think that's one of those moments where you're like, oh, they're going there with this movie. And the fact that it wasn't really like that they flipped it was like, no, it wasn't him that did it, it was her that did it, or was it her that did it? It was like all this crazy stuff. That's the stuff that like sticks with me, where I'm like, I can't imagine waking up like that and not knowing if I'm crazy and I just did this to a dog or something like that. That thing that haunted me when I was a kid, and it still messes me up. But yeah, I still watch it every year because it's so good. The music is great, and yeah, Bernard Rose's direction, some of these shots and some of the slow pans and everything is great. And also that it's just Tony Todd. He doesn't have like he's got the hook obviously, but he's not wearing a mask. He doesn't have like disfigurement like Freddy on his face. It's just this is what Tony Todd looks like, and he's a very attractive man, but he's terrifying in this.
His voice, I think, lends to that without a doubt.
Oh yeah, his voice is legendary. But yeah, I love this film.
All right, Lala.
I watched this film back in the day. Again, I probably shouldn't have. Obviously I had no oversight. Okay. And I didn't quite understand it when I was a kid. It was like gory and it was like crazy, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then getting older and been watching it like maybe maybe once more when I was a little bit older, but like watching it this time, it's a whole allegory about race. Like I didn't even realize that was a thing. I didn't even know that was that in that. Like I didn't understand that. Even when I was younger. So to watch it older now, I'm just like, oh, this film kind of hit me in a different way, and showed what like years and generation of like anger and could like brew into, which they just took a supernatural element of something that happens to people like Black people like all the time, and then just put a supernatural element to it, which I kind of like those stories. Like I don't need slave stories no more. Give me stories like this. Like, you know, give me a Django Unchained where we kind of like win at the end or something like that. Like start giving me stuff like that. Like I don't need, give me a revisionist history of my history. I know what happened. Everybody should know what happened at this point. Make it supernatural, make it smart, because even though this movie had a lot of racial tones to it, it wasn't so bogged down that you're like, oh my God, here we go with this thing and people trying to teach me stuff, and it's like, but you kind of learn, and then you're scared at the same time and you're enjoying yourself at the same time. So I mean, I thought this film was really good. I do think, okay, I laughed at one point where it's the scene like right before he has like all the bees in his mouth and everything like that, and he like lays her, like she was standing up at this time, and it's like the whole camera changed, like the cinematography of the camera changed, so it was like she was looking very rough, and then when they got an extreme close-up of her face, it was like glowy, it was like very 40s, like glowy. She had like a nice lip on, her makeup was done, and he's like touching her face and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, he ain't look like that 2 seconds ago. Like, I was like, what happened to her face? And then you go to Tony Todd's face. He has like this single tear coming down his face. I was like, what happened? What did I miss? I was like, wait a second. But it could be because he was getting stung by bees and he was crying. So that was probably part of the scene. But overall, I thought this was like I thought it was a really good film. Tony Todd is like a legend, as like people like to say. He's like, his voice, it's like he whispered this entire movie, and that, to me, that was terrifying. That he's just like, you know, he's just like, Ellen, come with me, and you're like, wait a minute, like, it's just like this whisper, like this breeze, it kind of, and his voice is very deep, and it was just like so much to this film, that like so many nuances. You could tell why it's like a cult classic now. Like people like really like this is their like thing now. But like I thought watching it this time was a good watch, because I didn't understand that as a child. But watching it, it makes me want to watch the next Candyman, because I know that they're connected. I know that it's essentially like a sequel to the first one. Like it doesn't take the second and third ones or whatever, like those other ones, is like a direct sequel to this one. So it makes me want to watch the next one. So,
which I haven't either. And again, why would I watch that one if I could barely get through this one?
No, I get that.
You know, I haven't
seen a new one.
And I love Jordan Peele, as I think everybody knows, but it's yeah, no, but I'm going to. I even bought it because my wife was like, buy Candyman. I have to watch that movie. So
the next Candyman came out during like the COVID-y times, and like my brain was just not. I was like, oh, that's so cool, and Yaya's in it, and it's directed by a woman, and Jordan Peele is producing it. I was super excited, and I was just like, life is too difficult for me to process things, and so I just disappeared from it. So now I'm like in a place where like I can just go on Paramount and like watch it.
So like, to that point, that's a great point, La, because horror fanatics like yourself, Josh, who watch horror year round, it baffles me, because even my wife, she kept watching horror during COVID, and I was like, I need to step away from horror for a little while because we're living through horror. I don't need it in my screen. I need escape. I need some sitcoms. I need some comedies. So how did you manage through COVID? Did you still watch horror movies? Did it just still come along for you?
Oh yeah. No, yeah. I mean, horror is an escape for me, so that's.
I was just about to say that. I say anybody that watches it year round, that is their escape. They love it. It centers them, you know.
It is weird. I didn't realize it's happened even more in the last few years, because my girlfriend loves horror almost as much as I do now, and then with TikTok, I feel obligated to watch more horror movies so that I can do content about them, and then it's just become like a regular thing where like. Last week, I was like, oh, Hostel 2 is on Hulu. I haven't watched that one in years. I should revisit it. And so I watched Hostel 2 at 9 a.m. while having my coffee which is not an ideal time to watch that movie for most people. But that's just how I operate now. But yeah, I didn't really have a problem with horror during COVID. I'm sure there were certain, I'm trying to remember which movies there were, but there's a couple movies you watched where I was like, oh, this is hitting a little too close to home now. Like I know when everyone watched Contagion again, and they were like,
yeah,
oh,
no, that's
like
I wouldn't watch
can't handle that.
Outbreak or Contagion or any of those.
Yeah.
Oh
like,
man,
wasn't
I
watching
watched
those.
Contagion once, and that was enough. And that was obviously that came out way before COVID, even though like not even way, like maybe a few years before COVID.
Right.
But I watched Contagion and was like, I could hear every cough in the theater. I was like, I gotta go home. Like it was just like the movie opened up like your third eye or something, because it made you realize that people are gross and you just never noticed it.
I didn't need that movie to know that about people. And I was also the kind of person that was like, when COVID hit, I was like, lock down the house. We're not leaving. Like I was that weirdo, but I've always kind of been that weirdo. So it to me, it was natural to do it. But
a natural weirdo.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. That's, I wear that right there on my sleeve.
I love it.
Tyler, I know you
Your
like
show?
horror. We've talked about how you also love horror. You watch a lot of horror movies. Did you watch much horror through the COVID era?
Yeah, well, like me and my friend, like my roommate in Colorado, we watched it a lot, because like a lot of the times we do this challenge where we're like, let's watch something that's like more fucked up than real life right now. Like let's see if we can get there. Like let's see where we can go. Like that's where I found like cosmic horror stuff, like Annihilation and all of that. Like that was it. It was fun for me. I just watched more horror.
Interesting. All right. So we all have a very different approach to it.
Yeah.
So this film, there are a couple of moments. I know that Mickey brought up some of these moments in his Did You Know, about like Virginia Madsen not knowing that the hook was going to come through, and the fact that they kind of put her through hypnosis. Like sometimes, especially in the 90s or before, they pushed actors maybe a little too far sometimes.
Too far. Mm-hmm.
But it still lends something to the film. I think that you can't quite make it this gritty now as you could then, and I think there's something about it. Also, there wasn't the gratuity in this. There was no real gratuity. Anything that would normally be considered gratuitous felt like it had its place, which, you know, whether that be the violence or the nudity, it didn't feel like they were just doing it like you would like a Jason movie or something like that, where they're just like, look, you know, shirt off or whatever.
But also it's the 90s. You need a little little ass in there. You know, you just need a little. You just sprinkle a little bit, because like at the end of the apartment, and the girl's like, hey, I'm about to make dinner. He's like, whatever, I'll come out. And she turns around. She has no bra on, white shirt. Nipples are just as hard as the day is long. And I'm just like, did we need this? But fine. I guess we did for the men in the 90s, I guess. It's like, did we need this? But all right, she could have just been walking around nude then. What's the point of the shirt? What's the point of the shirt? You
she also
home.
cut that steak on the counter, by the way. She did not have a cutting board. I was very angry about that. I was very angry about that.
You know what I was really angry about? The fact that she was this with the knife. She was like, come help me make a salad.
Yeah, with the sharp part down. I didn't understand that either.
I was like, is she supernatural at this point? How is she surviving this?
The story at the beginning, I love the movie. Don't get me wrong. I think it deserves all the accolades that we're going to give it, but the fact that Ted Raimi is the like bad boy good looking guy that the girl's going, I was like, Ted Raimi, no offense, Ted, like I love you, but I was like, bad boy Ted Raimi. I don't know.
Don't do that to Joxer the Mighty, okay? Joxer the Mighty has a certain aesthetic. Okay?
I don't know. It kind of threw me off. But yeah, no, I was even tempted last night to almost go into the bathroom and do but I didn't. I still couldn't bring myself to do it.
I have a story about that. Okay, so in elementary, because I'm a child, in elementary, remember Bloody Mary used to be a thing? Like Bloody Mary, like you call her name, whatever. And so, you know, I was raised by boys, so like I would be in the girls' bathroom, and I would be like, can I go to the bathroom? Because I couldn't care about class. I was just like, let me just go to the bathroom and hang out for a little bit. And so like I would have some girls in there with me, and they would follow me. And then like they were all doing this Bloody Mary thing. And I was like, I didn't know nothing about that. I was just like, cause I'm so out of like what the kids are doing. Like even to this day, I'm like, what's the trends? What can I hop on to get views? Like, I don't know like what's going on. And so all these girls are like, we're not a Bloody Mary, like blah, blah, blah. And then I was just like, all right. I was like, oh, let's do it. And they like, don't do it. She'll show up. And I'm just like, I was just like, are we doing this? Like, I was like such a curmudgeon as a child. I was like, this isn't real, whatever. And so I did it in the mirror and the lights went out.
Of course they did. That's circumstance. Like it had to happen to you, right?
And the lights went out and they screamed bloody murder, unintended. And they ran out the bathroom. And then Candyman came out. Same scenario. I went into the bathroom. I was like, y'all want to do this Candyman? And they sprinted from the bathroom. And nobody wanted to do it. So me and my friend at the time, the bestie at the time, I'll do it if you do it. We both did it, and nothing happened. And we was like, see, it's all a hoax. Like, it's all a hoax.
Well, see, here's the thing. Best friends. This was after Candyman came out. You had to say Helen's name if we're going to be really honest.
Oh, yeah.
Has anybody ever done Helen's name 5 times in the mirror? Because according to the film...
She took his place, essentially. So, yeah.
According to that first film, she would have been the one. So no, I won't say Helen's name. I can't do it. Maybe I should have just said Candyman just to get it out of my fears.
You know, it'd be great if they named her Karen instead. That'd have been hilarious during this time. Right. Oh my God.
Oh, there's a trope, and I think it's like in the 90s, maybe like a lot, but the trope of like, don't go in there. I think I'm gonna go in there anyway. Like,
yes, that is a trope. Yeah.
Like the lady kept telling her, what are you doing crawling into a hole behind this mirror in this abandoned apartment? She's like, that'll be fine. I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you mean?
No, Helen was a skeptic throughout the whole thing, and that's what essentially led to her demise.
She convinced the kid.
She wanted to know.
She convinced the kid he wasn't real, and then he was like, I don't have power anymore. You took my power. I'm coming after you. Right. Which I liked. I liked that the kids no longer believed. He's like Santa Claus in a weird, twisted way. You know,
what I think about her character, what was her drive though? Because her whole drive is like, I gotta write this thesis, and to me, I'm like, that's not strong enough, right? I wouldn't do all of this for a thesis. Like,
no, like literally, her thesis was about like how this community uses this like Candyman, like this lore as like hardships, and I was just like, listen, ma'am, I'll fail, or I'll switch my thesis statement, like. I'm not crawling through walls. I'm not the moment I escaped from this psychiatric place, I'm going on the lam. I'm doing something because like obviously I can't prove this true. So she pretty much just walked to her own demise at that point. I was just like, come on, girl. I was like, you could have left. Your friend died. She was trying to help you too. I was like, boy.
I felt so bad for Bernadette, man. That's just messed up. Like I felt so bad for her.
No, the makeup though. The way that they tried to make her pale, I was like, Lord have mercy. I was like, sis is blue. She ain't been there that long. That blood ain't dried up. I was like, y'all could have just not put makeup on her. She could have just looked the same because it ain't been that long.
It's only been like half an hour.
It's been like 30 minutes.
So we all do agree that the real villain in this movie is the husband who was obviously cheating on her with that student from the very beginning.
Oh yeah.
He's a total douche.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was so awkward when she walks up and she could tell, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" No, dude, like, where were you at 3 a.m.? Yeah,
that girl was terrified when she showed back up. She was like, oh, she was sleek. I was like, did she?
Did you hear what he said? Did you hear what he said to her when he was coming out of the bedroom? He's like, "Did you make a boo boo?" I'm like, "What the? What is going on?"
Oh
creepy
no,
weirdness.
Oh no, that was just so funny. I want that scene on repeat. Her just being like, she was just so flabbergasted that this woman was in the room.
I thought the Tales from the Hood scene was about to happen. Like she was gonna phase into the wall. I was like, no.
I didn't understand why Helen didn't rip the phone out of the wall. It's no longer her phone anyway. Like rip it out. They can't call.
At this point, I don't think she really cared. Like her, I feel like at the point of her being in the psychiatric ward or whatever, I think she was like, I'm done. So now I'm about to go save this kid because that's all I can do at this point is like protect this kid or like, you know, whatever, because I can't do anything else. And so I think that's why she called Candyman so she could kill the dude and she can get out because she's been saved this entire time. Like things have happened to her, but he's essentially saved her this entire time. I think she was just like, I'm at the end of my rope and all I can do is save this kid, which is why I liked at the end that like the mother and the community came to her funeral because they saw what she did for them, and then she became like the lore itself, herself. So
would she have become the lore had they not thrown the hook in her grave, though?
I think so, because he wanted her. I think she already went through with the ritual to become immortal. So I think she would have, because he did the whole bee thing and put the bees on her in his mouth and all that kind of stuff.
That was a crunchy
I
moment.
think, yeah. And the fact that she died in the fire, which was a cleansing, she might not have been inside, but she died from the fire.
Right.
I think it solidified her conversion over.
Yeah.
Hook or no hook, but that's just my theory.
I do like that she had his hook at the end. It wasn't just like some other, just like ice hook or something. It was his like custom.
It was his hook.
His custom hook. Yeah.
And it's not attached to her because they didn't mutilate her and all that kind of stuff. She held it like she held it when she tried to like kill him in force. So I think like that was
awkward to have to carry that hook around for eternity. That would be awkward. I don't know.
You immortal. You're fine. You're killing people.
Yeah.
You're happy.
Yeah, you got supernatural. Right. You're good.
Although he did,
yeah, you're fine.
Candyman did say the pain would be exquisite. So I think he did
Listen, when she killed him, that smile on her face was very Midsommar. She was very happy. She was very happy about that. I was like, oh, she excited. All right, sis. Kill him then. I mean, he deserved to die.
Yeah, okay. Why don't we go ahead and rate Candyman?
McGee should have died too, but that's neither here nor there. So.
Yeah, the girl lived, although maybe she went through the same thing. She was going to be blamed for the murder of her boyfriend, and I think it would
that'd be cool. Also,
great.
his murder scene was gratuitous. Like it was so much. His little foot dangling, the blood was. I was like, this is a lot of this is a lot of blood. This is, I mean, it deservedly so, but it was a lot of blood. I was like, oh, that's I'd have just left and been like, I haven't been here for days. What do you mean?
Biggie is in the chat and he said, so Candyman is a Cenobite in a sense, and that's kind of an interesting thought.
I don't know what the definition of that word is. What is it?
Cenobites from Hellraiser.
By Barker.
Never seen.
I mean, yeah, and it is a Clive Barker story, so that kind of makes sense that he would be in the same realm. Cenobites are basically demons from hell, if you want to get right down to it.
Oh, okay. Terminology.
Well, demons to some.
Yeah, it depends on who you are, but they come from hell and they torture the living crap out of people.
Just say that. That must be. So. I love you, Biggie. I love you, Biggie.
So it's going to be interesting that we're going to be doing Hellraiser next week because we're kind of leaping from Clive Barker to Clive Barker.
Listen, I want to say this real quick before we move on. I love The Real Study because I watch films that I probably will always keep in my brain and say, I want to watch this film and then just never get to it. But because I'm committed to this podcast, I make sure that I watch these films and it just opens up a whole new like realm in my brain. So thanks to The Real Study. I just want to say that real quick.
Well, that's partly you. Thank you for that as well. You brought some great films to this podcast. I mean, I wouldn't have gotten Palm Springs, which is one of my favorite ridiculous time travel comedies. It's fun. It's really worth a watch.
When I saw that Tyler review Palm Springs, I was like, I'm onto something. I was like, I know films since Tyler liked it.
It's good
because it seems like nobody knows what Palm Springs was, and they were just like, "What?" I was just like, "All right, maybe it's me."
I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, so why don't we go ahead and rate this? I started, so I'll go ahead and start. I do think this is an 8. I do think it's a solid flick. Definitely worth a rewatch if you want some good solid horror. If you want to be creeped out. If you want something that's going to be eerie and stick with you, at least from my perspective, this is definitely one of those movies. And then, of course, there are subsequent sequels, and then the new one that came out earlier this year. So definitely solid 8 all the way. Tyler, what's your rating?
I'm going to also give this a 9. If I heard Tony Todd's voice and he's like, come here, I'd be like, I just might, like, don't test me. If I was 12, I don't know, because I remember like seeing even clips from it. It scared me, so I probably would not have watched it unless someone like forced me or something. So,
all right. How about you, Lala?
I'll give this a 9. I'll agree with Tyler. I'll give this a 9. Especially with me watching it now. Again, like I had like bits and pieces when I was a kid, but now it just sits differently, and like my brain's better developed to understand the film. So, it just sits differently. So I'll give this a 9. And I was a kid. I was like, I don't know, 11. I was at 90.
92. You would have been 5.
5. Yeah, that's right. Oh, I was aging myself. Ooh, younger than what I am. Oh yeah. So I was like 5. So like 5, 6 when I watched this, and I was like, I enjoyed it. So I would probably give it another 9 because I wouldn't, it was still kind of like gratuitous. It had like elements that I liked when I was a kid because I was like the child watching The Omen just in the middle of the night. So like I would have dug this. I probably would have given it a 9. So 9s across the board.
9s across the board. Josh.
Yeah, probably same 9 or maybe 9.5 for me, just because I don't know if I actually saw it when I was 6 when it first came out, because I would have been 6 in '92. I think I was a little bit older, probably watched it on VHS, but yeah, this is still, like I said before. Huh?
Shout out to VHS, man.
Oh yeah, that was done. You could always tell where the movie was too scary last time because that's where
you stopped it, right?
Yeah. You're like looking at the reels, you're like, shit, I didn't get very far into this one at all. Probably 9, 9.5. And then even as a kid, I remember I probably would have given it like an 8 because I would not have understood half the story, like have hard attention to it. But I would have been, oh, the blood and the hook is cool. But now watching it as an adult, I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. And then I don't know if I've even seen the sequels. I know the second one's in LA and the third one's in New Orleans. But I believe the new one makes reference to the sequels. Like, you don't have to know the second and third one to appreciate the new one. But I feel like it still kind of includes them in the canon.
Cool.
But yeah, the new one is definitely like a requel, like the new Scream and new Halloween, where it takes place after the first one. And it's also fantastic. So I definitely recommend you all check it out when you get a chance.
Oh, sweet.
I'm going through a lot of horror movies this month. My wife, as you know, she's been following you forever, Josh. She's a huge horror fan. She's got her own horror page on TikTok and everything. I didn't watch the Child's Play movies when I was younger. I only saw the original. So she's mad at me. I'm not mad, but like glad, because she's glad she gets to watch me experience them. But I'm going through all the Child's Play movies and then some of the Halloween movies that I missed when I was younger as well. So Candyman is on the list. So like we're going to do too much horror this month. So maybe in November.
The franchise.
Which one?
Again, that was like the Child's Play franchise. We just finished it again this week.
Oh my gosh!
I'm watching it through. I'm sure that's one of my.
I love the Child's Play franchise. It's so good, but bad at the same time.
So that's the thing. Like it never. Like I saw the first one not right when it came out, but close, and it just never. I don't know. Chucky. I just didn't care. I guess I don't know. It just never.
He wasn't my favorite. Not too long ago, and it was when I revisited the franchise. I want to say like 5 or 6 years ago or something. I was like, I gotta actually like sit down and watch all these because I don't remember any of them. And I did it all. And I was like, oh, this is like one of my favorite horror like characters, horror franchise. Like I love all of these movies, and they are all over the place, which is crazy. But I love that Don Mancini's been involved the whole time.
The continuity, yeah. There's so much.
Except Mimic, obviously, and it's all Reddit, and then the TV show on Sci-Fi is also great.
So that's what actually brought this up. My wife was like, "Do you want to watch Chucky on the TV show?" And I was like, "Oh, that sounds great," but I've never. She was she was blown away.
Gotta watch all the movies first.
Exactly. So we'll get into those.
That's so funny.
Not for the
I
real
never
study,
watched
though.
them. And she's just like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
I married you without this knowledge.
She was shocked.
Did I do already?
Right. No, because that's her favorite. Like that and Halloween are her two favorites. While I've always been much more of a Jason Freddy, very classic. The Thing is of course like my favorite horror movie, but much more sci-fi for me than even slasher horror. But anyway, I digress. That said, this means we are going to have almost a full hour to talk about Nope, which I think is great because I think that movie deserves a lot of talking time. But there is the pre-review and a segment of me and Haunting Season, who is another horror aficionado from TikTok, who got to sit down with me this morning to talk about Nope. So we'll be watching that, and then we'll get back to us all discussing the movie. So we will be not right back, but back soon. Take a look.
The pre-review with BlindBiggie. The pre-review with BlindBiggie.
Hey, this is BlindBiggie coming at you today for the pre-review, telling you the movies coming out in the movie theaters and beyond. October 10th through 16th, 2022. Our first movie is called Bitch Ass. Bitch Ass is a crime horror film that focuses on a gang initiation gone wrong. The trailer was horrifically entertaining as we hear Tony Todd narrate a tale of the first black serial killer to wear a mask. Directed by Bill Posley, this brutal horror fest stars Sean McKinney and Tony Todd with his incredible voice. Bitch Ass has a limited release in theaters October 14th. Cat Daddies is a documentary about 8 unique men and their feline companions. It's about how these relationships have left their lives forever changed and documents a day in the life. The documentary Cat Daddies has a limited release in theaters October 14th. Next up is The Curse of Bridge Hollow. It is a family adventure comedy that stars Pariah Ferguson from Stranger Things, Marlon Wayans, who is a personal favorite of mine, Lauren Lapkus, Rob Riggle, Nia Vardalos of My Big Fat Greek Wedding fame, and Dave Sheridan. The trailer looks great, with hilarious moments and scary frights, as this tells the story of an ancient mischievous spirit and Halloween decorations that come to life and wreak havoc. The Curse of Bridge Hollow scares into town on Netflix October 14th. Any fans of Korean cinema out there? Park Chan-wook, the director of one of my favorite films, Old Boy, returns with a seductive romantic thriller called Decision to Leave, in a style only Park Chan-wook can deliver. This film has some great cinematography and revolves around a detective and a murder suspect. Tang Wei of Lust Caution and Park Hae-il appear in this romantic mystery set for limited theatrical release October 14th. Releasing simultaneously in theaters and on Peacock, Halloween Ends, the eagerly awaited return to Haddonfield, which sees a 6-year time jump and the return of Michael Myers, as his attempts to slay Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, somehow come to an end. The trailer was intense, and I, for one, cannot wait for this final showdown. Halloween Ends airs on Peacock and in movie theaters October 14th. Next up is the colorful and eerie horror satire film, The Loneliest Boy in the World, which sees Hero Fiennes playing a lonely young man who literally digs up a friend and a new family that strangely enough looks like a creepy good time, as the bodies seem to come alive and help the young man come out of his shell. The Loneliest Boy in the World has limited release in movie theaters October 14th. Stephen Lang comes back with a powerhouse performance in Old Man. In this mysterious horror movie, a man lost in the woods seemingly stumbles onto a cabin, greeted by an old man with a shotgun and a paranoia problem. The trailer for this looked super intense, tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. This thriller is out Friday, October 14th as a limited release. Rosalind is the tale of Romeo Montague's ex-girlfriend, as she stalks and obsesses over Romeo and Juliet's new blossoming relationship. But all jokes aside, this movie starring Caitlin Dever from Booksmart is a romantic comedy that looks fun. Rosalind, premiering on Hulu October 14th. Till is the story of Mamie Till Mosley and her pursuit of justice for the brutal lynching of her son in 1955 Mississippi. Danielle Deadweiler is awe-striking as Mamie, the sorrowful yet determined mother of Emmett Lewis Till, played by Jalen Hall, who brightens up the screen every time he's on it. This biographical drama hits the big screen October 14th in limited release. That's all for the pre-review this week. Hope to see you out there.
We're here to talk to the haunting season about the movie Nope, the Jordan Peele third edition, if you will, the third film that he created. This is kind of a different take for Jordan Peele. He went from doing psychological horror to, not that this isn't some psychological horror, but from psychological horror to more sci-fi horror. And being a sci-fi fan, this was right up my alley. So I was really excited to see this. And I actually watched this yesterday for the first time. So it's really fresh in my mind. Why don't you tell me your initial thoughts on Nope when you first saw it? I know you saw it when it came out in theaters.
Yeah, I saw it opening weekend. I was doing a shoot in Chicago, and my boss actually was there with me, the CEO of our company, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to go see a movie?" And I was like, "I'll go if we can go see Nope," because I was so excited about it. I had done before going to see the movie, I had done an immersive experience as an influencer where I got this hat, and I should have worn the shirt. I've got a shirt too, but maybe that's too much. Nope. So I went in feeling like I got a taste, but like they didn't give anything away at that experience, while simultaneously like having the entire movie represented in there, which was wild because I had no idea what was coming next the entire movie. We're doing spoilers. So by the time we got to the flying object and it being a creature, I was just like, I was excited like a little kid because it felt so fresh and so new, and my imagination just started rushing during the film about like whales in the sky and all kinds of like the darkness of what's underwater. Like he could seriously make this into almost like an Independence Day type franchise.
But yeah, you're right. This movie felt exceptionally fresh and different. It had throwbacks to some old sci-fi. There was a poltergeist reference. I think that the jean jacket creature, once it kind of fell into its natural form rather than its defensive form, I guess, and that's kind of a guess, kind of reminded me of like the look of the Alien Queen, the big head and those things that sprouted off her. Very, very Alien Queen look. But we know he's a fan of horror, so like going back. But yeah, it's definitely wild film. Not what I expected.
Or too, if we're talking about references, like it was very much Close Encounters meets Signs. There were those like little fluty sort of like do 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 thing from Signs, and then the orchestral style of Close Encounters. It was everything except for the womp 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 womp. Yeah, that was one of the most surprising things about this film, was the whole chimpanzee of it all, because you take a movie that's ultimately not that scary. It's got a lot of dread. It's got a lot of suspense, but you have that one jump scare in the barn, and then for the most part, you're just on this like whimsical, almost Steven Spielberg-y type ride, and then to cut into that, these horrific scar you for life images of this chimpanzee going nuts and killing the entire cast. I mean, that to me is what takes it from being just an okay film to an excellent film, because he was able to tell those stories in tandem and have them make sense.
Right. And it tied directly to the way that Jupiter was dealing with Jean Jacket, and how he felt like he could tame the creature, and because he felt like he had already kind of tamed a chimpanzee. That chimp didn't kill him. It was just like, hey, dude, fist bump, which is such a creepy moment.
That kind of leads me to one of my two critiques, and the second critique is really one that I've talked myself out of, so it's not even a critique anymore. It's just like an idea that I had.
Sure.
But I remember thinking, as I was reflecting on this in the weeks after watching it, that I had wished that Keke Palmer's character was the connection to the not making eye contact idea, because she was enthralled by Jupiter's story and the story of the chimp. And I think it might have been a little bit stronger if she had become kind of a little bit obsessed with that and went back and watched the footage. And we know the cameras were rolling, because when we go into that whole catastrophe happening, we can see the on-air symbol. So we know the cameras were rolling. So there had to be a recording angle of that moment when he made eye contact through the plastic, and the badness didn't happen.
Right.
And so if she had seen that moment and had been the one to realize, rather than our main character, thinking back to that opening scene with the green screen, I think it could have been like more connected, more deeply connected.
Sure.
But that might have been too like M. Night Shyamalan. People might have complained about that it was like too convenient.
I like the idea that OJ, the horse trainer, just knew horses well enough that he was like, well, animals that I work with don't like it when you look them in the eye. And so he kind of it dawned on him. So I could see the critique, but I think it worked for the OJ character.
And that's a deeper way of thinking about it than just like, oh, he remembered that opening scene.
Keke Palmer killed it in this movie. I fell in love with both OJ and Keke because they're so completely opposite of each other in so many ways. And when it got to the point where it was kind of one or the other, you know, I'm sitting there going, no, you can't take either. I'll be so mad if either of these characters dies. And you get the sense, there was a moment where I was like, wow, this is really just showing the power of the brother-sister relationship, how they can together fight off this entity that will just swallow you whole. It just blew my mind. I really liked that about it. Did you have any guesses at the beginning when all that change and the keys fell out of the sky? Did you find yourself
I was
knowing?
completely lost. I was like, how are they going to explain this one? You know, I had absolutely no idea where it was going at that point, especially and even when we started seeing, you know, the vacuum happen and people getting sucked up, I was still like, not even in my head that it was like a living creature. It was just like, oh, this is a different way. Of course, it's a different way of beaming people up other than just like a hot light.
Yeah, I didn't catch that it was a creature either until OJ comes out and says it. I did not pick up on that at all.
That scene when they're inside, when the people get inside for the first time, I started having flashbacks of Fire in the Sky, which is still one of the scariest films I've ever watched. I watched it recently and it still holds up to being just like nightmarish and horrid.
Well, looking at the creature when Jean Jacket does become its full form, I think back to some concepts of sci-fi or even just science. It feels like maybe Jean Jacket's from a planet like Jupiter, where it's very gaseous and heavy, and so it has to be all airy and light in order to stay afloat. So it's a floater that happened to be like, I smell humans, you know, a few 100,000 miles that direction, million miles that direction, and came over here. Or there's more of them, which would be frightening. And, you know, we do get tornadoes all the time. Or is it just a bunch of Jean Jackets running around sucking people up and eating them? Because that's kind of what I got from it.
Yeah, well, and if you've, you know, ever been in a storm in an airplane, you look out the window and you don't really see anything at all. Even passing through the clouds when you first take off on a cloudy day, it's just solid white out your window. You can barely see to the end of the wing. So there literally could be anything in there. And if that is the natural place for these things and they come out at night, these things are like, you know, clownfish hiding in the coral of the clouds and coming out to feed when it's, you know, safe and there's no shark people around. I don't know, it makes sense.
It does.
I could live with that reality.
So as a filmmaker, you know, you're watching Michael Wincott's character Antlers Hoist. What an interesting name. You're watching him, you know, film. He builds this, you know, non-electric, camera, and then, which is great because it just harkens back to original filmmaking, which this film has a lot of that, you know, especially talking about the first, you know, film clip and the jockey and the, you know, the Haywood history, fictional history based on a real shot, which is pretty fun. But Wincott's character, you know, he sees the golden hour coming and he's like, oh, if I can get the shot during the golden hour, like that will be the Oprah shot, as they mentioned in the movie. What did you think that as a filmmaker? Did you like that?
Yeah, it rang really true. Some of his stuff for like editing the you know, the wildlife footage, and that was a little over the top, but I also like know guys like that. So but that whole ending and how he died, I thought was very true in two ways. One, as a filmmaker, like when, you know, I've shot 15-hour days in Africa, but the sun's setting and it looks nice out and I'm back in my hotel room dumping footage, I will grab my camera and run to the window or run to the street and just pick off a few shots because it's so pretty. And when you see that light, you know, you just have that tiny window to get it.
Right.
So I love that. And I love that it was so over the top that it killed him. But also in that, I saw this message about privilege and about white privilege and about how just like way people are so fucking greedy because they have everything, but they want more, that he just like went off and died because he's a fucking idiot.
The line he says right there, he says, we don't deserve the impossible shot. He's almost talking about himself, like he doesn't deserve it. But Keke Palmer's character gets the $1 million shot, right? She gets the, so there is, you're not wrong. There's definitely, as with the other two films Jordan Peele has made, there is definitely elements of race in this film because that's kind of what he does. That's one of the elements he puts in all of his films. And I'm hoping he continues that.
Right. Even in the title, I've seen a lot of Black creators who are horror fans make fun of the fact that white people in movies always walk into the empty house and like turn on the shower and they're like, hello, is anybody there? And their reaction would be, nope. And that's just such a perfect title for this, because that's exactly how it all plays out. Is it's like, nope, absolutely not. And that's what ends up saving their life.
All right. Well, hey, Haunting Season, thank you very much for doing this with me and for chatting Nope. Of course, you can catch this tonight on The Real Study when we broadcast us all talking about this movie, as well as Candyman and Tales from the Hood. We're going all out tonight. It should be fun. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
And we are back, and that was our awesome discussion. Well, my discussion with Haunting Season earlier today about Nope. As you can see, he has some great takes, and he did get to go experience the actual Universal Studios, like the influencer invite that he got to go to, and he got to run around and check that out. He said it was quite interesting, and he and I talked further.
Good.
I will try to post a longer version of that discussion on YouTube for everybody to watch. But in the meantime, we are going to talk about Nope with this panel. And this is, of course, Jordan Peele's third showing, if you will. He has stayed in the horror genre, which I really hope he continues to do. It would be interesting to see him pop out of the genre for a little while, but I'd really, if his whole filmography is horror, I will be ecstatic. But why don't we go ahead and start with Tyler this time? And Tyler, tell me what you thought of Nope.
Masterpiece, simply genius. I really it was one of the movies that I had only watched one trailer and said that was good. Like, I don't want to know anything else about this movie. We went in, and the entire time through, like, I just did not know what to expect constantly. And, like, I love that Jordan Peele can do that so well. It's just like unexpected, or like whatever you think. Yeah, just unexpected. It's just really great. I also love that the cinematographer for that works with Christopher Nolan a lot, like Interstellar and all of that stuff. He shot it, and like it shows. Like, you're like, oh, totally different level now. Like, Jordan Peele can't stop him. Yeah. But yeah, really good. That's all.
All right, Josh.
Yeah, I also absolutely loved it. I thought it was definitely a masterpiece. I think objectively, this is Jordan Peele's best film as far as just story and scope, and everyone says spectacle, but that's absolutely what he was going for. I also love that if I saw this movie when I was 10 years old, I would have loved it and not understood any of the metaphors, any of the deeper meaning, any of the messages. It would have just been like Independence Day for me. Hell yeah, aliens, what? And loved it. But then watching it now, this is the kind of movie that, like, as soon as I got out of the theater, I was like, I need to find some reviews, I need to find some breakdowns, I need to find some analysis from film experts, see what I missed. I need to know what this is connected to, what the shoe means, what this is. But it was one of those where, I saw the first trailer and I was like, that's all I need, I'm in. And I avoided all trailers. So we saw it, and then I got extra hyped because I got an email from Fangoria that was like, hey, we're delaying shipment on your new issue because we've got an interview with like the creature effects guy from Nope and stuff all about the movie that kind of spoils it. So we made a deal with the film company that we wouldn't deliver this magazine until after the movie comes out. And I'm like, oh man, I can't even, like, you guys delayed my Fango because there's too much good info in it. Like, that's exciting. And sure enough, I got the magazine. It's like this whole spread about the guy that played Gordy and the the motion capture they did for Gordy's home and that whole sequence. And I was like, yeah, if I knew any of that before I saw the movie, I would have, because that whole like subplot was just insane. But yeah, I was eyes glued to this one. I was mad at the first scare in the barn because it got me, and then it was immediately like all right, no, that's bullshit. I wasn't actually scared.
I wasn't scared of three little kids, right?
Like, I don't know, you thought you had me, Jordan. You're not here. But yeah, just fantastic overall. I was blown away by this one. I can't wait to watch it again. I saw it in theaters opening night, and I haven't watched it since. I still need to pick it up, but I want to buy it and watch it again and see what else I missed.
I love it. Lala, what was your take on Nope?
Amazing. Okay. So I feel like everybody was cast to perfection. I feel like cinematography wise, it was beautiful. Directing was beautiful. Just like imagery itself was just great. Like big shots of like landscapes, and they use that space. I think is like great. I think that's one thing that Jordan Peele does. He uses the space that he's in very much so. Like even if it's huge, he fills it up. I just liked everything about this. Cause like, okay, somebody might think I'm crazy or be like, "You not that special, you not that gifted." But I feel like, I don't know, I feel like a symbiotic connection to Jordan Peele, because the way that he thinks and creates I have ideas that I've written down that infuse like my culture into it. So infuses like how I get treated by people or get treated by different races or however it is. And I put that into like a story format, and that's essentially what he does. And I was just like, so I have like a weird connection to him. I feel really connected to him as a director, as like a writer, and then it's like, because he's a Black man, it's like he writes for everybody, but he does have like Black people in mind. So like the way that Keke Palmer talks in this film, I talk like that from time to time. I've said stuff like that. As quiet as OJ is, I have people in my family that don't say much, but then when they do say something, it is of substance. You know what I mean? Like I've met people like Brandon Perez's character, I can't remember his name, but like the blonde hair kid. Like I've met people like him that's just like, yo, bring it down a notch. And like we're in this together type of thing. So like, I don't know, this movie just hit for me on like so many different levels. And spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, I don't know why you haven't seen it. You probably shouldn't be watching this podcast, but come back later once you watch it. The design of the alien itself, the fact that it looks like a UFO, and they flipped that trope and made it so that it does look like a UFO, but it's a full-on animal. I was like I lost. Like I think I died when that was like revealed, and I was just
Right?
like, what in the world? I was like, it was such, because it's like, and then it's like with that knowledge, and I watched it again, it was just like, that's why it's like it feels pain, it gets hurt, it feels anger, it has all these emotions that you're like, okay, because it's vindictive now. Like it spit out the horse, it's vindictive, it's mad, like it essentially pissed and shitted on their house. Excuse my language. Like that's essentially what it did, because he's mad now. It was like it was just like amazing. And then to me, the allegory of like Jupe and Gordy is because like once again, you're trying to tame something that can't be tamed, and you don't know when it's going to shift, or when it's you don't know. Like and then he makes a comment about it, talking about Siegfried and Roy, and about how they had that tiger since it was a baby, and it still did what it did to like its owner, or whatever you want to call it. So like this movie to me just touched. I feel like every time I watch it, I see something new, or I hear something new that I didn't see before or hear before, and it just adds more and more layers to the film. And again, they used Nope in a nice amount of times in the film. It was when. And they did a variation of it, because when she was like, nah, that's Nope. That's another way of saying Nope.
Yep.
So like and it's just like subtle things. Like it was funny, but it was also grounded. It was just like, it's so good, man. Like my dream is to like be next to Jordan Peele directing a movie, or him helping me produce something. I want to be like a family member to him. Like that's how much I love what he does and how he does what he does. So yeah. I can talk more, but go ahead, Snitty.
And that's why I wanted to give us plenty of time on this movie. I knew that we would all have plenty to say about it. Absolutely a great showing by Jordan Peele. This is my favorite of his films so far. We did already review Us on the show, and that's my least favorite, but it's still great. Like it's not bad. It's just the one for me that hits kind of the lowest. And I know everybody disagrees with me, but that's fine. That's the joy of all this. So for me, being that it's a sci-fi story, you got me. I'm in from the beginning with any kind of sci-fi story. It's also brilliantly kind of pieced together, and I think the editing in this film is brilliant. The fact that we don't get the next scene we expect, where he'll jump back in time very quickly at moments you might not expect that to happen. It's felt very fresh, even though it's an alien film. Felt very fresh and different. And Yeah, I agree with you, Law, about how the monster did decide to just take a dump all over them, because it hadn't done that before. When it dropped all the coins and killed Keith David in the beginning, spoilers, sorry. When it did that, it was happenstance. It had happened to, I think, suck in an airplane or something to that effect, because it wasn't killing the people at the ranch. It wasn't killing people at Jupiter's place. It was killing people some other way. And so I think that an airplane went through its cloud and it was just like, oh, and then spit all of that back out. And I don't know where the plane went, but whatever. We won't pick at that string too hard. But it really was. It was refreshing, exciting. I want to watch it again right away, and I'm very much like Josh. I want to go pick it apart, and I immediately wanted to talk about the shoe, or I immediately wanted to talk about the Gordy story. And I have a little something that I saw that I thought was great. Apparently, Jordan Peele in like 2014 posted a tweet that he had a dream about a chimpanzee that had gone apeshit and killed a bunch of people, and then came up to him bloody and upset, and then hugged him in his dream, and he woke up crying. And then a few years later, we get this movie, and I think it's brilliant. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. Speaking of which, I want to ask this question and see what you guys think. When Jean Jacket, the creature, for those of you that may not have watched it but are still staying for the show, Jean Jacket, the creature, has two forms that it's in. It has its saucer-like form, and then it has its big, like, fluffy type form, like almost like a floater. If you know Carl Sagan or sci-fi at all, the floaters are like Jupiter or Jovian style creatures that float in the sky. Do you think that is its defensive form when it's in the saucer mode because it's faster, or it maybe even has a thicker skin because it almost feels like whale skin almost, where it's protecting itself, while in the other form it's much more...
I feel like it's its true form. I feel like it's like wherever planet it comes from, if it's on a, like, whatever, wherever it came from, I feel like that's how they all just like walk around, or like float around. I feel like the saucer form is like technically like a more docile form, that because it moves quicker that way. It moves quicker in the saucer form than it does as like its billowy kind of like jellyfishy type of form. It's still quick, but it just moves slower. So I think like when Jean Jacket needs to be quick and like quiet, it's the saucer form. But then when it feels attacked, because animals have different forms. Like you put an animal in a corner, it'll change its appearance, its face, because it's afraid now, but it's going to protect itself. And I think on the theme of like animals, I feel like that's what that was. Like he felt like he was being like antagonized, which he was, and I think he was like, okay, now I got to show you who I really am. And I think it was just like an animal on its hind legs, like I'm ready to like pounce type of thing. So yeah.
All right, what do you guys think?
I think I took it as like, the kid in like the bully in high school. They puff up. They're like, "What's up? Like, let's go." Like that's like that form is that like I don't think, maybe not necessarily. I guess it, as a reactionary thing, yeah, it's like afraid, but it's more like, no, I can take you. Like there's no way. Like I'm the alpha here. Like there's no other. You're just some. I eat you guys every single day. Like But yeah, the thing you brought up about the jellyfish, I think the design is actually, I think I looked up some stuff briefly, like the way that it moves is like they looked up like jellyfish, like the moves they do. That's why like a lot of those scenes when it's like the UFO and it flies over a hill, that's I'm like go away, like don't come back.
And it was quick to get behind those hills as well.
Yeah.
A little too quick. Yeah, that was a big creepy part for me, is how fast the damn thing was. I didn't like how fast it was. So, any input on that, Josh, on the form of the creature?
I mean, I think I agree with what was kind of said here. It feels like when he's hiding out in the cloud, it's more just like chilling, not bothering anybody, just trying to get my food, just trying to go unnoticed, and then, oh shit, somebody's like fighting back. So then you do get into like attack mode where you just puff yourself up and this like full, like bring everything you've got to this fight or whatever. Probably should try to intimidate them, just like when they say if you you're attacked by a mountain lion or something, it's like open your jacket and stand up as tall as you can and make loud noises and just look bigger and more intimidating than you really are, and it'll usually scare people off. That's what a lot of creatures do. So that's how I kind of interpreted it. Like the cloud version is like me when I just throw on flip flops and walk down to the cafe and grab food and leave. I don't want to get noticed. I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm just like get what I need and get home. But the big puppy version is when I go all out and I want to get noticed out there. It also doesn't happen very often, but it does.
So do we think that Jupiter, or Jupe, I guess they call him Jupiter, do you think that he thought he could train the creature because he didn't get killed by Gordy? Because that's kind of what I took from it, was that he was the one person on set that didn't die or get maimed, if you will. And because he survived it, and even this violent creature at the end was like, hey, fist bump, dude, that he had this like, hey, I can do anything. I survived this ridiculous massacre. So he thought, oh, obviously creatures have a thing for me, so I can tame this sky creature. Do you guys think that's a possibility?
I think he was arrogant. I think he was traumatized. I think it was a bit of arrogance and a bit of trauma, because it was like he was the one that survived this attack. But if you look at it, like he never, because the whole thing with Jean Jacket was like looking at it in his eyes, because the sheet covered Gordy from actually looking him in the eyes. That probably actually saved him, because if he probably would have looked at him, because anytime somebody looked at him is when like Gordy attacked, because the girl I know she looked at him because she called his name and she was like Gordy, and like he messed up her face, and then the other guy is like, he's looking directly, he's running. Jupe is looking, but because he couldn't physically see him through the thing, I think that saved his life. But I think a bit of arrogance and a lot of trauma thought that he made him, because he was already this famous kid. After this incident, he got even more famous, and then I think all of that mixed in with his trauma and not really getting the help that he needed made him think that he was somebody special, that he was called to these, like, to this animal, to this creature, to this thing, and that he could tame it. And Jean Jacket was mad at this point, so he just ate everybody. He was like, I ain't got time for this. You ain't controlling nothing over here. I was like, dang, man, you and your kids, your family died, everybody died. I was like, but lucky was lucky. He stayed alive throughout the whole thing.
He really was
well,
lucky.
There's something I had read where it was like how he referred to them as the viewers, and it's because ever since he was a kid, his whole life has been on TV, and his whole like purpose, he feels, is to be watched by other people, and that him being Duke is entertaining. So that's why he's like, I got this reality show going, and then I got this part right up here, and then he sees this thing in the sky, and he's like, oh, it's watching. It must be fascinated by what it sees. Like, and he calls them the viewers, like it's just another audience. I thought was very interesting.
Definitely. So did you look into the shoe, Josh? Did you find out what the shoe meant?
I only watched like 6 or 7 videos about it and read 16 different like blog entries and still have no idea exactly what's going on with the shoe. One of the things I saw was that it was essentially like what OJ said about a bad miracle. Duke witnessed a bad miracle, and so the shoe standing up on one end is just something interesting and miraculous and crazy that happened while he was going through this traumatic, awful experience. That's just what he zeroed in on. That's what kind of stuck out to him.
I like it. It was weird that it was sitting on its heel and just sitting straight up. That's very, very odd.
Yeah, I might dig deeper into this movie. I just didn't want to dig too deep because I still want to make a review about it. I didn't want to dig, and I don't want to like use other people's explanations like and muddle it with my own thoughts. So I wanted to make my own review first and then go down a rabbit hole of like note stuff. So
got a lot of rabbit holes about everything that feels inspired by. There's like there's somebody on TikTok who did like 2 or 3 video series explaining how every character's name is a reference to something in the past, like spectacle wise, or like what their character does. And even a couple that she was like, well, maybe this one doesn't mean anything, and then somebody else was like, well, actually it could be this. Like, I think it was, I don't want to put anything in your head before you do your review, but
thanks. I'm sorry.
Antlers, Holst. She was like, I didn't know that the last name Holst meant anything. I just assumed that was like it sounded good with antlers or whatever. But then apparently her husband was like, oh, I thought it might be like in reference to this composer Holst. So she looked him up, and he did a whole symphony of the planet, and it was like linked to Williams, and it was all this like inspired by Cosmos type music. And I was like, yeah, clearly that's what Jordan Peele meant when he named him Holst. Like, obviously that was some inspiration here. That's not a coincidence. But
yeah,
every character's name is a reference to something that kind of ties in the spectacle. Every little detail, like the guy on the motorcycle, the shoe, the horses, all that. It's so wild. And I'm still learning stuff. Somebody just shared the poster the other day of Steven Yeun looking up at the sky, and they were like, he's not wearing a cowboy hat.
Oh, it's the UFO, yeah. The
actual like creature behind him that just
what?
looks like. And I was like, oh shit.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah. If you just Google like the Nope poster with Steven Yeun, and you're like, oh, all right.
There are a lot of references, and this is something that Haunting in Season and I talked about, but there are a lot of references to a lot of other horror movies as well, because we know Jordan's really into horror in general. And, you know, the obvious Poltergeist reference, but I even think that the creature at the end had like an alien queen look to it, where it had like those spiny bits. And he referenced the music and how it felt very Close Encounters, how the feel of the film felt very Signs. And so he was like lending to a lot of old, horror, but also not old horror, older horror, as well as sci-fi horror, which I thought was pretty great. I do think it's interesting that the way that it sucks people up is a tornado, and that kind of makes you wonder how many jean jackets we have on the planet Earth, because there are a lot of tornadoes here, and it makes me wonder, was this the only jean jacket? Did they commit genocide when they killed it at the end, or do we have more to fear? And since it's a Jordan Peele film, I don't ever want to know, because I want him to one-off these films. I never want a sequel to this. That would ruin it, I think. So, I don't know, just a few thoughts. It is great. It's crazy to me that Gordy is digital, because it was really hard to tell. They did such a good job with him. It wasn't until he started to get closer that I could tell, but it was subtle. It didn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
So
it's wild. Yeah, the looking at the photos of the motion cap actor that played Gordy is nuts, because they just dressed him in the full outfit. He's covered in blood, and they just superimposed.
That's crazy.
Gordy.
Wow.
Yeah, nuts. And then all the night scenes were apparently filmed during the day as well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I already love everything about this movie. You don't need to just like keep dropping more. Oh, you thought it was great? Here's some more.
It's better than that.
Let me catch up.
See, when they dropped that video about that, like, because I remember asking my girlfriend when we were watching it, like, I was like, knowing this, like, there's no, like, it's these super big scenes at night. I'm like, how is everything so well lit right now? There's no way. And it's like, it makes total sense now. It's like, yeah, okay.
No,
Jordan said there is a way.
Well, not only that, apparently they changed the way that films are going to be made, because this had never really been done before. The fact that it was in IMAX was a big deal. If you watch the credits, they do say that it was filmed on film as well, which I thought was like, whoa, that's not something too many people do these days. So that was kind of cool. For me, seeing Michael Wincott show back up in a film, I know him from the 90s, being the Sheriff of Nottingham's cousin and being the evil guy from The Crow. And hearing his rendition of Purple People Eater was such an amazing scene. His voice is so iconic.
I have a thing to show you.
I want to see it. But hearing his voice and just that deep, gruff, voice doing Purple People Eater, I've heard some people didn't like it. I thought it was perfect. Like, you couldn't have gotten a better song for that moment. That's right. He was in Alien Resurrection as well, but he's a character actor. He's not somebody you're like, that guy. You might miss him in movies, but I've always dug the guy. So what do you got for me?
So this past weekend, I went to Halloween at Cedar Point, and it's the first time I ever went. And because it's Halloween themed, they had like drinks in like IV bags. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I was like, that's novelty. So I just picked one up and was like, cool. And I left. And then I didn't realize until I got home that it said this.
Nice. Okay.
So I was just like, that's pretty cool because it's like an IV. So it's like you just drink it out the thing.
That's
like
I love how weird that is. I do.
Was like, because I've never been to Halloween weekend, and I was just like, Cedar Point's kind of cool for that, being like very on theme and stuff like that. So yeah, and when I saw that, I was like, Jordan Peele again in my life. Like I was all excited.
You got to come out to Hollywood. They got Halloween Horror Nights at Universal has no on the spot right now.
So I have to go.
So you can walk on the set, and it's pretty spooky. They've got the Tethered from Us back there as well, which is a weird like crossover.
Yeah.
But when you're walking through the Nope sets, they've got like the waving arm noodle guys, and then you go through
wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube men. Sorry.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Peele essentially has his movies be like in the shared universe somewhere, because with the now like did you know segment that Keats did, they talk about how where they ate it was the same place in Us. So I'm like, it's like I wouldn't be mad if it was a crazy universe created by Jordan Peele. Like I wouldn't be mad. So
as a white guy, I don't think I like that universe. I'm just saying. I'm not sure I'm loving it as
that's
being
cool, man. That universe just for me, man. That universe for me.
No, I do love it, but yeah, the white people are definitely thrown to the side in his films, which I love. Man. I think that's a great twist on the way it's been.
My whole thing is I love that white people are in them. I just love that they're not starring in them. Like they're in there. You just not the lead, baby, and that's okay.
I thought they were gonna kill off Brandon Perea at one point. His character Angel. That's his like.
Angel, yeah.
I thought
there it is.
I was like, please don't. I was like, no, the one Filipino dude, like the one brown guy. Like,
yeah, I cannot remember his name. Angel.
I thought that the fence would have been a bigger problem for Jean Jacket because he got that razor wire sucked up into him. I thought that would have messed him up, but when he coughed that out, I guess.
But think about it though. After he coughed that out, that's when he turned it to his actual form.
Right. He was like, I'm done with y'all. I'm going to do this.
That was the last, I think that was like the last straw. Like he was like pissed. And he was just like,
Right.
Yeah.
I did love the brother-sister relationship between OJ and M. I think that was such a brilliant portrayal from both. Kiki does an amazing job. Daniel does an amazing job. But I love that they kind of split the monster attention between them and it kept having to decide, and it couldn't until it was too far away from either of them to do anything. And it really, I don't know, it was pretty great. And I do love,
and it only went for M because she moved. It went for M after a while because she like moved.
Well, she kept looking at it and going, come on, come after me, and she was screaming at it. I love, this is something the Haunting Season and I discussed, that Michael Wincott character talks about how nobody deserves to have the perfect shot, the Oprah shot, really. And he tried for it and of course gets eaten when trying for it. But she managed it. She was the one that got the Oprah shot.
I think he did that on purpose. I think he did that on purpose. I think he was sick. You see him take pills right before he does it. He opens up some pills and he pops some pills. And they don't specifically say that he's sick, but like, I mean, it ain't aspirin. It's in one of those bottles that that it's like something that was prescribed. So I think he was sick. And I think he was like, this might be this is a good way for me as a filmmaker to like wanting to get this. This is the best way for me to go out. I think he sacrificed himself for a shot because he was just like, I'm not going to survive. He probably had like months or something like that. They didn't specifically say this. It's like my own narrative, but to see him pop pills and like Angel was kind of like, well, what you doing? And he was just like, don't worry, Angel, it's going to be okay. And I'm just like, he about to die. Cause that's very ominous that he said that. So yeah.
Was anybody else? Oh, go ahead, Tyler. No, please.
I was just going to say, like, I love the callback that like I knew it had to be Keke Palmer's character at the end because it's about filmmaking and stuff too. They mentioned in the beginning, like, originally one of the first people to be on film was a black man on a horse in that, so having her on a motorcycle and not even that, do the Akira slide and her being like her getting the final shot, it's like, it feels like a win for the black community. It's like, we're taking this movie, we're taking that back. Like, we are the pioneers of filmmaking.
Like we're like Haywood in that sense. Like I felt like I was a part of the Haywood like family, like tribe, because you had OJ on something, like you had OJ on a horse like his great grandfather was, but then you had her on a horse that was like an updated version. So they both were like representing their heritage, but in like different ways. And so like I think that was cool too. And everybody loves the Akira slide. I was just like, You know, I was just like, that was just a solid slide, man. I like people lost their mind in the theaters when I went to go see it. I went to go see it later though, but like people lost their mind in the theater. It was like, yeah, like people was just like cheering on hard and stuff. I was like, okay,
I like it. Was anybody else as upset with M's character once she had taken the Oprah shot, when she got up to look at her brother and she left the $1 billion shot sitting on the ground behind? I was like, pick up the photo. There's people everywhere. Pick up the photo. Pick it up.
Did she leave it though? Because I don't think we
just
never
in that
see her,
moment.
like...
I don't mean that she left it ultimately. Obviously they picked it up, but right, like if I knew I had gotten the money shot,
I'm not mad at her.
I just would have. I don't know. I would have been like, that's mine. Get away from that.
She survived, man. This was a Hail Mary plan, and like she survived, and then she saw that her brother was alive, and that's obviously, it shows that like, yeah, she want money, but her brother is more important to her. Right. So like that didn't really bother me. What did bother me though was like, where all these reporters come from? Y'all didn't get eaten? Where y'all come from out of the blue? Like they just popped up.
They even said, they mentioned that. They talk about how people are going to show up because this, especially what happened at Jupiter Ranch, they mentioned that the reporters will show up. So
my question is, like, where y'all being? Where was y'all at? This thing is big in the sky.
Well, the TMZ guy is kind of the first in showing that they're going to show up. So
his whole body was broken, and he's just like, "Where's my camera? Where's the camera?"
Always getting content. It's always the shot's always more important.
Where's my camera?
He was definitely a TikToker.
Like,
no doubt he was a TikToker.
And you know what's funny to me? His helmet was just as shiny as that little bauble, that ball that Lucky looks at. Mm-hmm. And like, so like, it's like the animal seeing his reflection. And that's why like OJ kept telling him like, don't look up, like stop looking up, because the reflection, like what is going to essentially kill you. But I will say this though, sound design on this film, the sound design had me messed up. Do you understand me? I never, you know what the horses sound like whenever a horse got like, cause like OJ was like, you know, Ghost made a noise I ain't never heard a horse make in my life. You know what it sounded like? It sounded like a warped version of like Willie crying, like from Free Willy.
Oh my god, that's
so interesting.
It's like they took Willie's cry and then like put it through a machine and like warped it, because it was very like it was very like ominous, and then hearing people scream, but actually seeing the visual of them being like eaten, like shoved down like an esophagus. I was like, what am I watching? It was so good. I was just like, that's a POV you didn't think you would ever get, because you don't really get that in like
shocking. Like you're
movie.
They're
and
alive.
It was like an assembly line. It was all just like moving.
I felt like it was a flying Zarlak pit where it was just slowly digesting them, and they could feel the burn as they were going up. Do you guys think that was the horse that was stuck up in its esophagus that the lady gets pushed up next to? Because she can't really see the thing. I think it was the statue of the horse.
Because she was like, she kind of pushed because it blocked her. Like she didn't have anywhere else to go. And I think that's when he was like, "Oi!"
Yeah, no, he hawked their loogie back on the house, and then spit out the horse. So now that scene, that moment with OJ in the truck where he like, you know,
that's my favorite scene.
I love that moment. That's such a brilliant moment.
So real.
But you know what I like about, and then locks the door. Like, what's that gonna do?
I like about Jean Jacket though. The thing I like about Jean Jacket is that like I could feel the animosity from Jean Jacket. I could feel how angry. I could feel how mad it was, because it still had the string from the horse when he went to Jupe's. He still had the string. I was just like, and then he showed up early, because the thing was like Jupe is like, he always shows up at this time. We have time, and then you just heard the noise that it made, and I was just like, I don't think he happy. I don't think he happy. And like, it to me, it was just like elements of it that was just like, I could feel. How can I feel the animosity from something that's not there? Like y'all digitally put that in.
That's why I like that OJ seems like he was in the truck just waiting in like the rain, and you can see like he's just hovering right above, and he's just waiting. He's like 5-10 minutes, maybe 30 minutes.
Call me dense, I guess, but it took me a while to realize that Jupiter was basically feeding horses to Jean Jacket. My wife had to point that to me afterward, that's what he was doing with the prize trained horses, was he was just feeding one after another to this creature.
That's why I don't like, I mean, I do like Jupe's character because he's tragic. I like tragic characters. He is tragic. But the one thing that really messed me up was like the scene where OJ and M go to talk to him and be like, yeah, I can bring you Lucky. Like, it's fine. but like, let's talk about me buying my horses back. And he's like, yeah, that's no problem. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so you like this, like, let me show you this thing in the back. Like, you had no intention because you're feeding my horses to this alien. And I'm just like, and then had enough nerve to be like, hey, yo, come on, family showing so I can show you this alien eating your horse. Like, why would you invite me to the family time? Why? I was like, the audacity of that kid, man. Like,
oh yeah,
I was just like, wow.
And that's like the whole message of the movie, right? Just like the exploitation of spectacle, like how far people will just go. So, and that's why, like, that ending scene, I think it's good that she didn't go for the picture, because I think that's the message. Is like, look at all these people who aren't concerned about these people who clearly look like they've been through something. They're like, oh, what happened? I want to know what the big thing is. I don't really about what, like, are you okay? I guess.
Yeah, and she was just like, all right, let me go check on my brother first, and then we'll get this picture. I guess it was a couple of moments that are funny to me, like okay, like the scene where the host comes up and he has like the non-electrical camera. And like Kiki's character was like, didn't I tell you this was gonna come up here with a non-electrical camera? Let's go, boy. Like, I love that part, because I promise you that's me and my brother together when we just being silly or like having fun. That's like me and my brother together. When the TMZ guy flew off of the bike and you heard like you heard that noise. That part is so funny to me. I crack up every time. And then, spoiler alert, the alien dies. I wish we could find the carcass, because I would love to see what that looks like.
It looks like it floats away though. It like doesn't hit the ground. I want to know if it like, and if it does, maybe it evaporates into the atmosphere, or like maybe it finally comes out eventually. But I would love to see what it looks like, or like does it turn back into like its solid form, and then like I don't know. I think it's just a deflated bag at that point.
Deflated bag point. But like the other part I like is when it blows up, and it literally was just like a that's all it was in this air, and I thought that was hilarious. Like, I cracked up in the theater. I know people was like, this is crazy, but I was laughing so hard. I thought that was
it was good. I totally agree. Okay, we are pretty much out of time, so why don't we go ahead and rate Nope, and then we're going to be calling it an evening. Why don't we start with our guest, Josh? What is your rating for Nope?
5 stars, Angel. 5 stars. I give it probably 9 out of 10. I got to watch it again, definitely, because this is one that I think I'm gonna like it more and more with every viewing. But remembering how I felt walking out of the theater, 9 out of 10.
All right, Tyler.
I'm gonna say 10 out of 10. It's one of the Jordan Peele's a banger.
You're gonna give him a 10 on his 4th film, even though it's not out yet.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not even hesitating.
I love it. Lala.
Man, I don't want to do this because I don't like giving 10s, but I'm gonna give this movie a 10 because, and mind you, this is my second 10 on a Jordan Peele film because the other 10 I gave was Us. So this is a 10 to me. This movie was just like it's one of those films that like every time you watch it, you see something new, and then like if you get more information on it and then you go back and watch it, it's a whole different film now than what you initially thought it was. Like, to me, that's the mark of a great film, of a great filmmaker, of like taking time to write something. I don't need you to come out with a billion movies across a few months. If you can give me one movie every few years that's like this, you might be the greatest writer I've ever seen in my life. Like, you don't need to saturate the market. Just give me quality stuff. And I feel like Jordan Peele takes his time. He researches, he writes, he adds layers and things in it that you just don't even recognize. And even say you don't go researching, that's not what you want to do, you can still just enjoy the film for what it is. So it gets a 10 for me, man.
I'm also going to give this a 10. I said 9.5 when the movie was over, but 9.5 by math standards is a 10 by default. So 10 out of 10. Definitely worth a watch. If you like sci-fi horror even a little bit, if you like sci-fi even a little bit, if you like character-driven dramas,
because this is a neo-western as well. So if you like westerns, it had so many elements. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. And I don't even like westerns, and yet I love this film.
Yeah, you don't. That's funny.
So it's definitely solid. Everybody should check it out. And I still want to hear why the naysayers give it 6s or 5s or
because they don't understand it, and they're not willing to research it to maybe get a better understanding and then go view it again. And honestly, I feel like the people that don't like it, like you can not like something, but I feel like if you're like adamant and like this is stupid, it made no sense. He was talking about you. He was talking about you. That's why you don't like it.
That's
It was a
fair.
reflection. You literally was a reflection of yourself.
What were you gonna say, Josh?
I think people also were just expecting something similar to us.
Mhm.
And it was like, no, this is completely different films, completely
even
different
Get Out.
idea,
Or even
a whole
Get Out,
new
people.
spectacle, and everything's kind of different there. And they just, not so much they didn't understand it, but also some people don't want a horror movie that's got a ton of metaphors and really like deeper meaning in it. They're like, no, I just want to. The same people that like, I don't want to shit on movies, but the people I know who love Halloween Kills, and they're like, oh, I just wanted to see him stab a bunch of people, and I'm like, oh, I need way more than that. Like, I was not happy with that movie at all.
Because he was karate chopping people. I was like, what?
Yeah. And these are people that went nope, and they're like, that's not what I wanted to see. And I was like, well, were you expecting aliens? Like, did you want it to come down and like tear them apart and like a bunch of gore and shit? Like, I don't know. But
at this point, anybody who goes to see a Jordan Peele film and doesn't expect this kind of thing, they're just not paying attention. So that's really on the viewer at this point.
And not to be pretentious, but it's a genre. It's elevated horror. Like it's a different. Like if you go in expecting the other thing, it's like
it's like he's creating his own lane, and I dig that. We don't need more of the same. Create your own lane, man. Make some new stuff. Make people get mad, make people question stuff, make people be confused, make people research, make people dig deeper. I'm here for all that.
That's what makes
man.
it classic, though. Those are the movies that cut deeper, so that in 20 years, people are like, "Oh, Jordan Peele, man, he really changed the industry." And I think we're going to see that. I think that'll be true.
Yeah.
So, anyway, this has been episode 2 of season 2 of The Real Study. Thank you so much to our special guest, Josh Levesque. If you are not following Josh on TikTok, please do. He's got amazing horror content. Always follow Tyler and Lala as well, BlackGirlMarvel, and myself, MrSniDBitS. Never forget the MrSniDBitS. Please follow us all on all platforms. Otherwise, you shall see us next week. Have a great night, guys.
Sure will. Peace.
Bye.